Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 178 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the Second Amendment podcast that is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me, it's not as always. It wasn't as always, but now she's back, and honestly, I am so grateful. Back, triumphant return, my lovely hostess, Erin Paulette. Oh, Erin, how are you?
Oh, you dirty bitch! Work the shaft.
How are you, Erin?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. It's been a tumultuous weekend full of ups and downs, and we're going to talk about some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hi everybody. If you have paid attention to the Facebook group, you probably know what's going on. If you don't follow Facebook, yeah, this is a surprise. So very briefly, this is proof that Mommy and Daddy are not getting divorced. Mommy simply needed some time away from the increasing bleakness of the future in order to confront her issues regarding self-worth and the value of whatever she brings to the program, in addition to some health issues which are hopefully being addressed. So I took some time off. I didn't even listen to the podcast. And, after about a month or so, I felt like I was ready to come back, and we've got some really good news to talk about, which is something that I have very strong feelings about, because it just seems like for the past 2 years, we've had a lot of bleakness. And so I'm going to try and make an effort to bring some positivity, to this program. I may not always succeed. That's going to be my goal. Just a friend once said, I seem to hang on to darkness more than usual, more than most people. And, that's fair. My mother was diagnosed with depression like back in the 1960s, and my father is one of those Jews who isn't happy unless he's complaining. So, yeah, I come by it honestly. But that's something I'm trying to work on, and hopefully, we won't have to do this again. I shouldn't even need to ask how you're doing, Weer'd, because I can tell you are just over the moon.
I am exuberant. And by the way, I was just thinking about Erin Paulette hanging on to darkness, and it's just one of those, like, at some point, like sometime when we're at a convention, you need to have like a goth girl day.
Okay.
I'm bringing it back. Ah, the good old. I mean, I guess it wasn't always, because we had like Abby from NCIS, bringing on the goth girl. They seem to get plowed under by the emos, and then moved on to, I don't know what's the current outcasts in high school are doing these days.
This reminds me. They were talking about the differences in musical styles. It's like emo is the world is doomed and it makes me want to cry. Goth is the world is doomed, but you can still find some beauty in it. And then it was like, I don't remember exactly the next musical thing. I want to say it was ska, something like the world is doomed. Here's an accordion.
There's actually a few ska bands that have an accordion player. I think actually some of the early ones in Jamaica used accordion quite heavily. So yeah, there's that. Oh, but yeah, I'm glad to have you back, Erin. Things have been bouncing around a bit. Last week, my daughter was sick, and that was part of the reason why the show didn't happen. It was just we had lack of stuff, and just I had just like a crazy weekend of dealing with like a sick kid, and just things were bouncing around, and then and now my wife has it. And to further joke on the bits of gender norms, on my on my lovely corporate monster wife that I am an endearing housewife too, is you always see the meme of the men most times are like this, and there's like a showing of a stoic rugged man, like, you know, wearing flannel and coveralls, and he's got motor oil on his hands and he's just looking tough. And then men when they get a cold and it's a little baby crying. And I feel like overall I'm not like that. When I get a cold, yeah, I get sick, and you know, I take care of myself and I rest and I dial things back, but overall I don't really find myself being particularly whiny. But oh my god, my wife, she is so tough that she felt opiates make her sick to her stomach. And so when she had brain surgery, the Dilaudid prescription that the doctors gave her to deal with the pain of having your skull cut open, and your skull cut open through your jaw muscle.
Ooh.
Yeah. They had to sever her jaw muscle and reattach it to do the surgery. And that makes it particularly ugly. And so because she would just vomit up any pill that had any strong opiate in it, she went through brain surgery dealing with the pain with nothing but Tylenol. And not your fancy pants, oh my god, Tylenol. Literally bought it over the counter at CVS Tylenol. That's how tough my wife is. And yet right now she has a cold, and oh my god, is she insufferable. And I'm taking good care of her. Hopefully she'll be out of the woods tomorrow, but it is added extra levels of drama to my life. Ah, there you go. You just posted it. Yes. the world is doomed, and the world is doomed, and I'm pissed. The world is doomed, and I'm sad. Goth, the world is doomed, but there's beauty. Ska, the world is doomed. I have a trumpet. Not wrong. God, I love ska.
I know. Ska is the noise you hear in your head when you get an extra mozzarella stick.
It's true. So yeah, that was our week, and I'm glad you're feeling a whole lot better. And are you warmed up? Is it like riding a bike?
Yeah,
I thought it would be. So shall we?
Especially riding you, podcast bicycle.
Oh, that's another thing to talk about, is that I was contacted by Tom Kubinik of Secure Tactical, and I was on his live stream. So the podcast bicycle rides again. It's been a while since someone is hey, let me have you on your stuff, and it was added on the we'd like to have you on camera. So I was just like, now what do I do? And so like I did it over my tablet, and I listened to it actually. I listened to it today, and it didn't sound too bad. So the sound quality wasn't wasn't an issue, and I did it up in our guest room / den / my wife's yoga studio, because there's a big framed poster on the wall that says "relax." I did not put that decoration up.
Did Frankie go to Hollywood?
That is a good song. That is a good song. What is the Two Tribes, though? That's my favorite Frankie Goes to Hollywood song. So shall we talk about yon good news?
Yes, we should.
So where should we start? Ladies' choice.
Well, we are definitely going to talk about the number one subject everyone's talking about right now, the Kyle Rittenhouse acquittal.
Yes. Yeah. This was a huge story, and I mean that not in a political sense. And I'll say right now, and I think you agree with me here, this is not a political story, and I'm pissed off that people somehow think it is.
Why, yes. In fact, I had quite a bit to say about that when Pink Pistols released its press statement about this. And boy, the amount of butthurt and pushback we got on this, which is remarkable, because I took such great pains to make that press statement as neutral as possible regarding the person himself. And you know what? It's short enough. I'm just going to read it here.
Oh, please do.
For those people who haven't read it, and for the people who have, you'll probably enjoy hearing it again. On Friday, 19 November 2021, the jury of the Kyle Rittenhouse self-defense case in Kenosha, Wisconsin, returned a verdict of not guilty on all counts. This case was more than a simple matter of, was it legitimate self-defense or was it murder? On trial beside Mr. Rittenhouse was the right of all citizens in the United States to lawfully carry firearms for the purpose of self-defense. The prosecution built a case which claimed that carrying a weapon constituted an automatic provocation of whatever violence was perpetrated upon Mr. Rittenhouse. Had he been convicted, then those of us who lawfully carry weapons for protection could one day find ourselves on trial with the prosecution claiming that being armed somehow negates our right to self-defense. It is gratifying that the jury saw the implied indictment and removed that prosecutorial theory from any consideration. It is the mission of Operation Blazing Sword, Pink Pistols, to promote lawful self-defense with legally owned and carried firearms, and such a miscarriage of justice would have resulted in yet more violations of the constitutional rights of U.S. citizens. Our position is that gun rights are queer rights because guns in the hands of queer people protect queer lives, and therefore any law which seeks to prevent us from carrying a gun for self-defense is anti-queer and a threat to our lives. And so, if you heard it yourself, did I at any time say, Kyle Rittenhouse, we support his actions. He was right for being there. He's a good boy. Did we? Did I say anything about the person himself other than that he was on trial for self-defense?
Mm-hmm.
And, oh my God, the amount of pushback. And, whoo. So I actually wrote a blog post about this, and it's too long to read. There's going to be a link to it. But really, what it comes down to is I stand by my assertion that if Rittenhouse had been convicted, then the prosecution's position of you were armed, therefore you had it coming, may very well have taken root and destroyed what we have left of the right to keep and bear arms. And the next time there's a self-defense shooting, it could be one of us who is on the stand. And hey, we don't have the massive war chest to afford top-notch attorneys to defend us. And as we saw, the prosecution was, oh my God, the amount of prosecutorial misconduct.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get into specifics, but I'm going to let you know that I'm shopping around for an attorney who, and I don't know really how it's going to happen, but it was just, hi, I'd like to pay you to report this guy to state ethics committee or the bar association or something, because I mean, when this guy was trying to make the case that Rittenhouse was guilty because he invoked his Fifth Amendment rights, no, hard no. That's garbage, So, really, what it comes down to is you are either for self-defense or you are not. And clearly, Pink Pistols and Operation Blazing Sword, we are for self-defense. And that's why we agree with the verdict. And a lot of people didn't see it that way.
Yeah, I mean, the circumstance behind why Kyle was there and why the people who he shot or shot at were there is really irrelevant. It might come into some relevance if there were laws being broken or there was, other mitigating circumstances. But the only thing that was there was the curfew order that was in effect, and the judge essentially threw that out because, right off the bat, early on in the trial, because it's nobody was arrested for disobeying the curfew, so why is Kyle Rittenhouse going to be the first and only person to be arrested for that? And furthermore, the judge questioned on whether or not the government has the right to say you have to go home at such and such time. And I agree with that statement. I am kind of an absolutist as far as individual liberty goes. And if you would like to leave your house at any given point in time, that is fine. So long as you're not in prison, you can move freely about the country. And so outside of that, like, Kyle was there, whether it was a good idea or not for him to be there. I mean, clearly it was not a good idea for him to be there, because if you watched any of the testimony, Kyle's not a super happy guy. Like, he went through a year and a half of hell dealing with all of this. And as they like to say, the best way to survive a gunfight is to not be in a gunfight. The best way to survive a life-destroying trial is to never see the inside of a courtroom. And so even though Kyle has been vindicated in the courts, in no way, shape, or form did he win. This is going to be a lifelong battle for him, and something that I'm sure he wishes he never had. And there's certain ethical questions, given the fact that the police were there at the time of the shooting, and they were very, very close, and they really weren't doing anything, including when Kyle turned himself in. They told him to get the hell out of there, despite the fact that he had just shot 3 people. So if the police aren't there, then now what? And so and I won't get into that, because I mean, God, your super level-headed press release got scads of butthurt. I started scrolling through the Facebook comments, and I'm just like, no, I don't have the spoons to deal with this. I'm just closing this and moving on. But yeah, if that one got so much, I'm not gonna poke the hornet's nest. But the bottom line is that he was being attacked. It was shown in court that he was being attacked. There was some very, very thin allegations that he provoked the attack, which absolutely, if that was true, he would not have the right to self-defense, and he would not be acquitted, and it would be murder. And the jury saw that that he had not provoked the attack, and that was certainly, as someone who's watched all the available video that I had to me and to form my opinion, I determined, it looks like he did not provoke the attack. He was being attacked. I had the added, metadata of knowing the people whom he engaged with, and being able to look up their criminal history and various news stories about them and things like that, to know that, they were not necessarily the nicest people on the planet. That doesn't mean that they deserve to get shot and or killed, but I'm just saying that does certainly color, if they had previous violent attacks, the idea that they might be attacking Kyle and not Kyle attacking them makes a little bit more sense.
It shows a pattern of behavior. Correct.
That's exactly what I'm going for. And in the end, when you deal with the last 2 people that Kyle engaged, you had one person, while he was on the ground after being hit in the head with a rock, while he was on the ground, somebody hitting him repeatedly with a skateboard, while there was a mob of people, essentially saying, kill him, kill him. And then somebody came up to him, and that person was shot for doing that. And then somebody came up to him with his hands up, and Kyle did not shoot him, and he admitted as such on the stand. And then when he went and pointed his gun at Kyle shot him in the arm. And then he ran away, and Kyle did not shoot any further and immediately fled in the other direction towards the police. And if those actions were to be considered murder or negligent homicide, or however many different counts that the prosecution was willing to allow the jury to rule on, let me tell you, it's pretty tough to come up with a scenario where me, just regular old me, walking around in my day-to-day with my concealed carry gun, somehow being safe from going to prison just for defending my life.
One thing I do want to point out, and I will preface this with, I haven't thoroughly studied this. I'm not a lawyer. I may get some minutia wrong. But the reason why Rittenhouse had a rifle instead of a pistol is because of his age. It's the same reason why he was open carrying instead of concealed carrying. He wasn't old enough to have a concealed carry permit. It was legal for him to open carry. It is... what? Tell me, Weer'd, what is the federal age in order to lawfully own a pistol? Isn't it 18?
21.
21. Okay, so he couldn't lawfully have a pistol, even if it was open carried. But he could, and this falls under some of the hunting statutes, he could have a rifle. So I can't read his mind. I don't know if there was anything in there about, well, I'll be big, bad, and intimidating. But I'm telling you, in order to comply with the law, he needed to open carry a long gun.
This actually came up when Kyle was on the stand. I believe it was the prosecutor Binger was questioning him about the rifle, and he was going on a bunch of. I mean, these are clearly both the prosecutor and the defense were none of them were gun people, and it was very, very obvious with just some of the ways they were talking about it and dealing with it, but he was asking him, essentially saying, there was one point where he was treating someone who was injured, and a friend of his was there, and he took and the rifle was banging on the ground while he was treating this person, and so he unclipped the gun from his sling and handed it to a friend of his and had them hold it for him while he was treating the person, and then he could take it back. And Binger was asking about wouldn't it, was the gun getting in the way? He says, absolutely, the gun was getting in the way. And he said, I would, ideally, if I was carrying a pistol, that would be much better because it would be less in the way. It's less heavy. It's less burdensome. But I was only 17 at the time. I could not legally carry a pistol. And so that's a great statement. I mean, it's one of those reasons I remember hearing some people talking about if you could just open carry a rifle, what would you carry with you? And my answer would be, I'd just carry a pistol, because when I'm going about just my everyday, when I'm at the grocery store, I'm not there to repel borders. I'm not there to fight off the Red Army. I'm there to go buy groceries. I'm there to feed my family. And so I need both my hands, and I don't want something that's heavy banging around beside me. So I just carry a pistol. And so, yeah, this was another great example of where the law actually caused more problems than it solved.
Because the answer is always more government.
Woo. Yeah, because they're so good at everything else that they do. The government said, hey, everybody go home. We're not going to have a riot today. It worked good. And I don't know if it's been confirmed. I know that it's at least been alleged in other states that the government gave stand down orders to the police so that they would not engage the people who were rioting and causing disturbances. And I don't
see. That's what I heard, but I didn't know for certain.
Yeah, I don't think it's been confirmed anywhere, but I have heard on multiple things stand down orders were issued, and I've got to wonder about this because again, 3 people were shot in a span of I think about 4 minutes. And the police were within eye shot and definitely within earshot of this. And they're hearing gunshots going on, and they probably were seeing the fires that were being started. And yet they're just kind of over there, which, brings in the standard issue of it's one of those, you call 911, they'll be there when they're there. And until then, you're on your own. In this case, the police were like literally right there. If they wanted to get there lickety split, they could have got there, and they just weren't. And Kyle was as alone as you could be during those 4 minutes. And again, I'm disgusted that this even went to trial in the first place, given that the nature of his defense and given the fact that it was recorded from so many different angles that he should have been treated like Jack Wilson. Sorry you had to go through that. I'm glad you're okay. No charges will be filed.
It would have been so much worse for him if there had not been video footage of what happened.
Yeah, it becomes a more difficult case.
Well, hell, we've got video right now. We've got people who are still saying no, he's guilty. So yeah, if all you had to go on was forensic recreations and witness testimony and oh goodness.
Well, we certainly saw that with the George Zimmerman case as well. It was because there was no video, and as a matter of fact, I would say one of the more exculpatory pieces of evidence was that while George Zimmerman was being interrogated after that, and again, like Erin in her lovely, beautifully written press release, I am in no way, shape, or form praising George Zimmerman. I am just simply pointing out the letter of the law and how justice was served. He said the police were interviewing him, and of course, anybody that's been following police interrogation principles, it's against the law to lie to the police. It's not against the law for the police to lie to you. Mm-hmm. And the police told him, hoping that they could induce a reaction that might be telling to them, told George Zimmerman that one of the officers had just collected the memory card from a security camera that was pointing out into the front yard of the house that he was at, and they got everything. And George Zimmerman's response was, "Oh, thank God." And I would argue that was one of the purposes of why they told that lie. Obviously, it was not videotaped, but his hope was he knew that he was down on the ground and getting his head beaten in by someone who was considerably better fighter than he was, and that he shot in self-defense. And thank goodness there was a camera there to capture this. And unfortunately, they just had to go on for that trial. The defense had to go on all of this just forensic evidence that was left behind. And there's still people who think that Trayvon Martin was murdered. I don't agree with that.
Well, neither do I. And I'm not going to go into details, but oh gosh, it was quite a long time ago. I had the privilege of attending a law of self-defense seminar hosted by Andrew Branca, and he had with him one of the lawyers for Zimmerman's defense team. I think it was West. Mm-hmm. We all know how good I am with names, folks. And he laid out point by point how he conducted the defense and how it tied into Branca's book and his points of self-defense and things like that. And so it really, I'm not going to say it opened my eyes, because that might indicate I had a different outlook, but it was just, oh, right. Yeah, I've got a much clearer picture of what happened. And so several years later, I was talking with a bunch of British people. I started to call them kids, but they aren't children. They're just much, much younger than I am. I mean, they were in their early 20s. So, to me, that's a kid, because I could have been their parent. And someone mentioned, because I was there to talk about guns and gun rights, and someone asked about Zimmerman, and I answered, and they started up, and I don't remember really what the question was, and I answered, and I think I did it with a little bit more vehemence than I intended to. I said something like, I attended an all-day conference regarding the specifics of self-defense, and one of the key speakers was the defense lawyer for Zimmerman. If you want to argue about this, we can, but I guarantee you I will win. And I don't know if I just impressed them with my knowledge, or if they were like, no, she's crazy, or whatever, but that just kind of squashed that line of argument. And it was, and I was perfectly fine with that. It's like, okay, good. We've closed off that little detour. Let's get back to talking about gun rights.
I mean, I honestly speaking, and seeing the Facebook comments on that, and just the general fallout of this, I'm kind of impressed that they were so polite. Maybe it's because it was face to face and not on the internet, that somebody didn't challenge you, because boy, like, especially on the internet, boy, I don't care what you've done or what you've seen. You're wrong. Based on what? Being wrong. Okay.
I think we've talked this one to death. Let's move on to the next one.
Yes. Speaking of a case that is more complicated by the fact that there is only one recording of bad video for it, is the Ahmaud Arbery case, which is... I don't know the timeline of, especially since by the time you guys hear this, we're recording this the Monday before Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving will have been has just been passed for those of you that are listening to this as soon as it comes out. So I'm not sure if they're going to try to get the jury will have a verdict in before Thanksgiving or not. So the closing arguments were given on this Monday. That's what day is this? This is the 22nd. So we shall see, but I'm very hopeful for this case. And by very hopeful, I am hoping that the McMichaels will be found guilty. I don't know specifically of what charge and what level. I don't even know. I haven't heard the jury instructions. So I don't know what's on the table, but while the Kyle Rittenhouse case is probably the cleanest case of self-defense that I have seen being presented in a courtroom due to the plethora of evidence, this one, while not the dirtiest, does look like a dirty shoot to me.
It's almost a textbook example of a bad shoot. Mm-hmm. Oh, good Lord. And what's ironic, at least to me, is that one of the defendants provided the video that is being used in his own prosecution. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not suggesting he should have deleted it, but if he hadn't recorded it, it would have looked much better for them. Because oh my God, I know you're going to talk about this in great detail. Yeah. So here's the summary for people who want to fast forward. So apparently, in this particular neighborhood, there had been a rash of burglaries that had allegedly been committed by a black man, and apparently, Ahmaud Arbery matched this description. I mean, he's a man and he's black. I don't know anything else about the alleged thefts.
Actually, if it's all right, I will stop you there. It's actually the alleged burglaries had happened from a white couple. And that was specifically who was advised on this. But overall, the neighborhood had a bunch of construction sites, and the owners of these under construction houses were concerned about people trespassing and stealing things.
Okay, good interruption. And so you've got the McMichael family who live next door to one of these places that is being constructed, and they notice someone go in and look around, and they presume steal things. I don't even know if the police have determined if that person who was trespassing on a construction site was Arbery or not. But apparently the McMichaels, there's a father and the son, and I believe the father is a retired law enforcement officer, so he really ought to know better. He got a neighbor by the last name of Brian, and the two of them, the three of them got in two pickup trucks, and they chased Arbery down and blocked him in, and they held him at gunpoint. And I believe the point was they were trying to conduct a citizen's arrest. And one of them called 911. And I believe one of the quotes was, "We have him trapped like a rat." Because, when you're conducting a citizen's arrest, you really want to tell the police that you've trapped somebody. That's smart. And Arbery, being confronted by three angry people, he's trapped, he's outnumbered. There's a gun pointed at him. I don't know what all's going through his... I mean, I'm certain he's scared, but I don't know enough of the details to where I can speculate as to why he decided to resist instead of just go along with things. But I can certainly think of some instances where the thought would cross my mind, well, they're going to kill me regardless. I might as well go out fighting. And so he made a grab for the shotgun, and they were wrestling for it, and either during the altercation or shortly after, McMaster something or other. Again, names. I'm good with them. When he got the shotgun back, he shot Arbery, I think it was twice, at close range with the shotgun. And, we're all gun enthusiasts here. We know what that does to a person. And so, yeah, he died, hopefully very quickly and without a whole lot of pain. And there was also some issue regarding the fact that the DA would not bring this to trial, and the only reason it was brought to trial was because somebody leaked footage where apparently one of them uttered a racial epithet that DA was recused and a special prosecutor was brought in. So yeah, it seems pretty dirty all round. So there, that's the 12,000-foot view. All right, Weer'd, I know you're going to want to drill down on some sort of specific.
Yeah. So I think, well, one point is the racial epithet. I'd heard about that, and I know that it was not given as evidence to the jury. So there was that, but I do have to wonder. There certainly have been some allegations towards the McMichaels feelings about black people. So we will see. It's circumstantial, so I won't dive too deep into it. But certainly, if any of that made an appearance when Ahmaud Arbery was confronted, that certainly also adds to a reason why he might not want to just stand around and chat and see what all the hubbub was with the white gentleman with a shotgun. But yeah, so the big crux that I think is going through and why I think this is going to result in a conviction is that that Arbery was, I believe they did confirm that he was trespassing. He had not stolen anything. There was nothing missing, and there was nothing on his person at the time of his death. So therefore, that is not a felony. And in the state of Georgia at the time, I believe they've since removed the citizen's arrest capabilities and reaction.
They have indeed.
Yeah. But at the time, it was legal to make a citizen's arrest, and you could make a citizen's arrest for any crime. But if the suspect ran and attempted to flee you at that, you were not allowed to give chase or give resistance to them unless it was a felony. And the fact that this was not a felony, and there's really no reason for the McMichaels to suspect that it was a felony at the time, it does make it very, very difficult to justify the pursuit and the cornering and the citizen's arrest. And therefore, again, you have a situation actually that's very similar to Kyle Rittenhouse in the first encounter with Joseph Rosenbaum, is that Joseph Rosenbaum is unarmed, Kyle Rittenhouse is armed, and Joseph Rosenbaum goes for Kyle and grabs at his gun, and Kyle shoots him. And in this case, Kyle was acquitted. In this case, I suspect that they're going to be convicted. Well, we will see. But I think it's pretty good. And the grounds being that Kyle had every right to be there at the time and was being chased by Joseph Rosenbaum. And meanwhile, Arbery had every right to be on that road, but was being chased and confronted by the McMichaels, who had no right to do so because, again, neither had committed a felony, nor had they had any good reason to suspect that he was committing a felony. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that makes them the instigators. And if you are starting a fight, then defending your life in the middle of the fight is not justified.
Mm-hmm. Once again, I would like to promote Mag 40, because in the 20-hour classroom portion, they talk about the very, very few times you should pursue someone who has committed a crime. And the exceptions are so small as to be practically non-existent. So in general, if you're not a cop, don't pursue a criminal. It's not your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And furthermore, yeah, if you're ever at a point where you are drawing your firearm on somebody for some reason, and this is something that I always like to do. I've read a bunch on it where it is highly recommended that you game out various defensive scenarios that seem reasonable. John Correa's the ASP, what is it?
Active self-protection?
Yeah, active self-protection. Yes, active self-protection channel is a great place to do that, where you can see just about every flavor of self-defense there is out there. And so see yourself in that situation. What would you do? What does John recommend? What do the other people in the video recommend? What have you read about such situations? And kind of go over it in your head. That way, when the adrenaline's flowing and your heart's in your throat and your vision is tunneling down and your ears are ringing, what do you do? And certainly I've been in a situation where I'm standing there and I've got my gun on somebody, I might ask them to drop the gun and lay down on the ground and get it so that they're on their stomach and away from that, and in a position where it's very difficult for them to do harm, and we can just wait for the police to show up. But at the same time, if they don't want to obey my commands and they want to run away, I see that as a victory, because what do I care? I certainly have been, as someone who's worked as private security, I have pursued someone who was suspicious at a safe distance, only so that I could point out to the police when they arrived where the person was, because I saw it kind of pointless as someone who's called the police for someone who was a problem and wanted them to come and possibly make an arrest, only to have them show up and go, "Where'd he go?" They went that away. They were wearing a white T-shirt. Thanks, kid. So I'm all for making a good witness, being a good witness, and being able to help direct law enforcement to something. But under no circumstances would I ever make a point to confront somebody or detain somebody for a crime. It might be different if I'm a security guard at a store and I'm dealing with shoplifters. That's not something I've ever been in that situation on and had to think about.
Well, yeah, but see, that's different because it is your job and you have gotten some degree of certification for it. And you also have backup, either in terms of another guard or the corporation will help, defend you in case there's a trial. You're not just going at it yourself.
Yeah. And actually that reminded me, these guys were not employees. They were helping. And the whole statement is, that I've always heard, is never draw your gun to defend someone you wouldn't go to jail for. And this is just a great example of that if you draw the gun to stop a fight, then, you could very well go to jail for this. So how well do you know this person? How willing are you to help this person out? And it's just, it's a good way to give yourself pause, because these guys are looking at spending the rest of their life in prison. That's no joke. And so, yeah, be very, very cautious at what you're doing. Cause you're not the police. We already have the police. Use them, and only use your firearm to defend human life. So hopefully we'll see when the verdict comes out. It might be out by the time you hear this, and hopefully I'm not going to have to eat my words in my prediction that they're going to be found guilty of at least something in this case, and will probably be spending some time in prison.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we've had a good shoot, a bad shoot, and now we're going to have a complicated shoot. You may not have heard of this because it was announced literally the same day as Kyle Rittenhouse. It was just a matter of a few hours later. And that was the trial of Andrew Coffey IV. Now, for people who don't know, Andrew Coffey IV is a black man in Florida. He does have several felony convictions under his belt. I don't know all of them. I believe that one of them was for evading the police. Another one was for assaulting the police. So, I mean, he's certainly not a saint, But on the other hand, he's not like a murderer, a rapist, things like that. And from all accounts, he had been out of jail for a while. He had a girlfriend, Althea, look it up, Weer'd, and she was pregnant with their child. And by all accounts, they were happy, and he was looking to turn his life around. Now, at the time, they were living with Andrew's father, and so that would be Andrew Coffey III. And his father was the one suspected of dealing drugs. And so the police had a warrant to raid the house. And there are conflicting reports. The police say they announced themselves. Andrew IV said he didn't hear it. Although I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they were sleeping at the time. Yeah, that would fit with the whole no-knock type raid where they do it late at night / early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing Andrew says he knows is that there's a barrel of a rifle sticking through his window as the team tries to smash its way in. And so, not knowing who these people are, not knowing that they're police, he produces a gun and starts shooting at them, and they shoot back. And during the course of the gunfire, his girlfriend and their baby are killed. And so, because of a statute that Florida has, and a lot of states have, he was charged with her murder. By the way, the police did find drugs, and, they were on a coffee table. Oh my god, that's a pun. I didn't mean that. But yeah, they were just out there on a table for everyone to see. Now, I'm not going to defend a lot of Andrew's behavior. I mean, he is a released felon, and I'm going to assume, since the drugs were found out in the open, that he knew his father was trafficking in illegal drugs, and released felons and felons on parole shouldn't be around those sorts of things. They're a bad influence. There's also the fact that as a former felon, and he hadn't had his rights restored, he did not have the right to access a gun. And even if the gun wasn't his, if it belonged to his girlfriend or to his father, the fact that it wasn't locked up, the fact that he had access to it, means that they're just as guilty for letting him access it. So the trial finished, and it's a mixed blessing. He was acquitted of all the violent charges of the murder and the attempted murder. There was something about hurling a missile at someone. I could not find the details for that. That sounds interesting, but I'm guessing he threw something out a window during the gunfight. And so the jury deliberated, and they said, no, this guy's innocent of that. You know, it was a no-knock raid, and it's very reasonable for him to assume that this is a home invasion, it's a burglary, it's a whatever. And, gee, he sees a gun sticking through the window, he's going to start shooting. That's reasonable. So he was acquitted of those. They did find him guilty of felon in possession, and because he has a felony record to begin with, and I don't know if there's a matter of, well, he has X number, and that makes it, it automatically bumps it up, or if it's just the prosecution trying to get back at him. But they are seeking the full punishment, which is going to be 30 years. Now, for me, this is where law and justice differ. I understand that felons who have not had their rights restored, it is a crime, it is a felony for them to have a loaded weapon, on their person, or constructive possession. But to me, that law really should only apply during the commission of a crime. And if you have a gun for self-defense, which, look, he did, and the jury has already decided that what he did wasn't a crime, hey, he didn't use the firearm in commission of a crime, Therefore, he shouldn't be found guilty of that. I know there are some states who have that statute, but Florida isn't one of them. Seems to me that an appropriate punishment, well, in addition to him losing his girlfriend and his unborn child, an appropriate punishment would be seizure of his firearm.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, that's a $500,000, $750,000 fine right there. And to be told, no, don't do this again. So that is the overall view, and that's my thoughts on the case. I'm glad he was found innocent of defending himself. It's really a shame regarding felon in possession, although by a strict reading of the law, I can understand how they get there. What are your thoughts, Weer'd?
I mean, I just, for Claire, adding on with the felon in possession, I certainly would have to say, and certainly we hear about, if you follow Reno May, who is a Californian gun tuber, an activist, and just if you don't follow Reno May, just look up Reno May and subscribe to his YouTube channel, because he's really awesome and he's fighting the good fight. I really admire him. But he points out the fact that he knows people who carry illegally in California. Some of them might be because they have some criminal charges and therefore they can't legally own the firearm that they're carrying. Or they live in places like, Oakland and San Francisco where carry is completely illegal, because unless you are somebody special, you're not going to be able to get a permit for it. So therefore, you can't open carry in California and you can't concealed carry in California without a permit, and they won't give you a permit. And so because of that, these people may live in bad areas or feel the need to carry a gun, like bad Weer'd, slap your hand, punish you. Everyone has a right to self-defense, and the idea that, I'm not in a bad area, or I'm not in a bad place, or there aren't bad people about, is just foolish, because everybody's in a great and safe place until they aren't. So the idea that I want to be able to protect myself, I always want that option of deadly force in the event that I need it. And when you need deadly force, oh my God, you damn need it. So yeah, the people will, in certain areas, will carry illegally. Same thing could be said about places that restrict the carrying of firearms. There were people that may elect to, I'm stopping by the post office to pick up my mail. I'm not going to lock my gun in my car, or I can't lock my gun in the car. There was a case where the only place to park was the post office parking lot. So yeah, I'll break that little white rule that you're not allowed to carry in the post office because it's a federal building.
Concealed means concealed.
Exactly. And so I would say that yes, if you are detected carrying, and that's it. A police officer sees you're printing, you end up doing something else that leads you to getting searched, you're committing an additional crime, something like that. Absolutely. Get you from that. If you're defending your life, yeah, you're 100% right, Erin. Take the gun. You can't, we can't give this back to you. You're a felon in possession, or you were carrying it in a restricted area, or you're carrying without a permit. So yeah, we can't give this back to you, but you were protecting your life. And that is like the most human of human rights. And the idea of punishing somebody for the means of which they protected their rights, their life, especially if those means are legal. It is perfectly legal to shoot somebody if they're trying to kill you, or you believe they're trying to kill you. So the idea that, you're not allowed to have a gun and therefore we're going to punish you for having the gun that you used to shoot somebody that you were fully in your right to shoot. I mean, it feels like it's the wrong order of operations.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a way to do a larger recap, we have heard many a person say that there's some sort of racial angle in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, which really gets me scratching my head, given that Kyle, I believe his lawyers have pointed out is, or at least I've heard Robert Barnes mention it multiple times, that Kyle is of at least some Hispanic heritage. He would be a white Hispanic under the, I don't even know, I don't necessarily know or agree with that statement.
Isn't it weird that we've had 2 self-defense acquittals by quote-unquote white Hispanics with German last names?
Yes. Yeah, that is that is super duper interesting. Is both Kyle Rittenhouse and George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman was a full. He technically speaking, at least under Jim Crow laws, would be black, because he certainly had relatives of African descent in his direct lineage. I'm derailed on all that, but Kyle's the only one that I'm aware of who could check at least one of the boxes on a 4473 for minority status.
Mm-hmm.
And all of his other attackers, as far as I know, are just plain old white. And so, I don't see a racial component on that. Certainly, it being a BLM protest doesn't really change anything as far as race goes. But meanwhile, we've got this case. We've got this case where Ahmaud Arbery was shot, and in a very, very similar as far as the mechanics of how he was shot to Joseph Rosenbaum. But in this case, it's really looking good that it's going to be determined that is a murder or a wrongful death of some sort, and therefore his killers will be forced to pay for their crimes. And we have this instance where a black man was defending his home from police who had not properly announced themselves. Police, we've got to stop doing no-knock raids. It's just not a good idea. Anything that is worth doing a raid on is worth knocking on the door and showing them the warrant before you come in. Or if you want to be sneaky, you stake out the house and you wait for them to leave. And then you go in to what you believe to be an empty house. This whole no-knock raid nonsense is just altogether just terrible. And oh, by the way, his departed girlfriend is Altaria Woods is her name, an absolutely gorgeous woman. It's a shame, especially that she was carrying a child at the time. Just a horrible case.
Mm-hmm.
But we have all this. So, despite all the doom and gloom that you, Erin, you said before you wanted to come on, you needed to hear some good news. And I got to say, despite all the doom and gloom that is going on in the world, these are good cases, and these are definitely flying in the face of this discussion that there is horrible, horrible racism afoot, and that people of color can't get justice in America. And the only thing that I think is standing in the way is the fact that some of these cases are getting a whole lot of press, and these other cases are getting hardly any case. As a matter of fact, I was letting you take the lead on the Andrew Coffey case, because honestly speaking, I've only heard it anecdotally, and I just haven't had a chance to pursue it myself, because certainly nobody else is telling me about it. So
that was knowing rueful laughter. Yeah.
So shall we shift gears again, Erin?
Yes, let's have something a little lighter to lift the mood.
Let's have a little light dicking, if you will, from
just the tip.
From the ACP House Dick. I reached out to Steve first up because I miss him. Come on, Steve. I want you to be on the show, but he's been busy. He bought a new house, so I don't blame him. Me buying my house destroyed me. Oh my God, it's so much work. And so I totally get it. And but I knew that he had been in a movie and that movie featured significant amounts of gunplay. And so I'm like, hey, Steve, given that we have this this case of shooting at the set of the movie Rust by Alec Baldwin, and what a cluster it is, can you give us the insight of a movie that nothing wrong happened? There was lots of gunplay and there was lots of handling of guns and nobody got hurt. So Steve is going to give us his first-hand account of being an extra in a zombie movie.
Hey everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood trunk monkey, back for a segment that nobody wanted, save for maybe Weer'd. He wanted my take on the soup sandwich that is the Alec Baldwin Rust shooting debacle. So I'll give you my 2 cents. The reason he tapped me for this is because I actually worked as an extra on one of the last days of filming the zombie movie Strain 100, which featured such YouTube talent as Matt Carricker from Demolition Ranch, Hickok 45, and one of the lead characters was the infamous gun bunny, Tori Nonaka. An absolute sweetheart. I do have a photo of myself and Tori from the end of the shoot with yours truly done up like a zombie. Sadly, my part wound up on the cutting room floor. That particular scene, the very end, was filmed at the Dearborn Public Library. It was like the final shootout at the lab type location. So yeah, and that particular scene was shot in, I think, August of 2018, and of course it wasn't released until earlier this year to digital streaming services. Go ahead, check it out. Acting, of course, is... it is what it is. I'll just put it that way. But Weer'd, of course, he wanted my take because they did use real firearms on the set. There was an armorer present, and prior to shooting the final scenes and spending all day on the final zombie climax type thing, Tori took us all aside with her trademark Glocks, of which they were modified. Firing pins had been removed. There was no live ammo anywhere on set. So her firearms were rendered incapable of firing live ammunition, and they were her custom Glocks with the purple base pads, mag wells, and of course she was wearing a 3-gun belt as a quote-unquote cop. But I had the gun pointed in my direction a handful of times. I died a dozen different times, landing in a planter on the street, in a parking lot, and everything else. Tori was exceedingly professional. The stunt zombies knew what they were doing. The armorer knew what they were doing. Basically, all the gunfire was actually added in post. So there was that. So there was no risk of being shot. So whatever the potato-brained armorer was planning, and of course, Alec Baldwin being anti-gun, but I can't speak highly enough of Tori and the team at the Strain 100, even though the movie wasn't that great. But it was extremely professional. The armorers knew their stuff. The cast knew their stuff. We had safety briefings in the morning, after we broke for lunch, when we came back, and yeah, it was safe. We had medics on scene. We had more scraped elbows than anything else. But yeah, they really screwed the pooch on this one. So if there's call for it, I'll see if I can't find that picture. It's probably somewhere on my Google Drive. But yeah, Tori Nonaka, she knows her
sugar
forward and backwards. Jen Dallinger, I think, was the other female lead in the movie. Gunplay was smart, and it was exceedingly safe. So one can hope that Alec Baldwin and that armorer spend some time behind bars. But Probably won't. But that is what it is. That's your 2 cents from Trunk Monkey and the gunslinger behind merchantofboom.us. So, yeah, that's my 5-minute hot take. You can blame Weer'd for that. You guys take care. And I'll see you on the flip side when the free ice cream machine isn't as broke as it has been. Be safe.
That sounds like a really fun time.
And just, I mean, all those personalities. And I mean, I haven't met Matt Carricker. I want to. I looked so hard for him when we were in Dallas, and he was there at the same time, and I just did not bump into him. But Hickok 45 is just a dream, and so I can imagine that movie was a lot of fun. I watched the trailer for it. I've got a link for it on Amazon Prime. You can rent it there if you want to see this, and you can keep your eye out for Steve. And you're not going to find him because unfortunately his scene didn't make it. But yeah, it was great to hear how it's going on. How a movie done well goes around. Words.
Yep. So Weer'd. At the risk of tooting my own horn, are you aware that I have met Hickok 45?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen the pictures of you with him, and you do in fact go a little above his belt buckle.
Not by much.
Oh,
he's tall.
He is a him and John are just gigantic. I remember actually one point he was on Handgun Radio with Ryan and I, and he was talking about, oh yeah, John when he was little. I'm like, was John ever really little?
I mean, I'm really not sure who's taller, Hickok 45 or Larry Correa. I mean, from my standpoint, they're both in the stratosphere.
That's an interesting question. That if I'm willing to bet, if I had to put my money on it, I bet Hickok is a little bit taller, but I bet Larry outweighs them.
I think he's a little bit broader beamed in the shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Larry is a gigantic man as well. And of course, as you know, Hickok, of course, has that deep baritone voice. But but again, I love the fact that you were, the first time you met Larry, you were just shocked at he's a tenor. Yes, he is. I did not have such a shock because I'd heard interviews with him before, and so I'd known what his voice sounded like. But yes, it is a little shocking to hear that somewhat squeaky tenor coming out of that gigantic man. Supposedly that was Abraham Lincoln as well. Abraham Lincoln had a very high pitched squeaky voice. Though I'm gonna say I had a oh shoot, what was it? Was it Encarta? What was the CD-ROM encyclopedia from the 90s?
Yes, I believe Encarta was one of them.
Yes, I had an Encarta, and on that Encarta was a you could click a little button, and it would play James Earl Jones reading the Gettysburg Address. And so now forever, whenever I see Abraham Lincoln or read a quote from Abraham Lincoln, it's in James Earl Jones's voice.
Well, who wouldn't want to have James Earl Jones? Look, I want to have James Earl Jones' voice.
Oh yeah, I mean it's one of those. I do podcasts all the time, so I'm not ashamed of my voice. But if it was James Earl Jones's voice, it'd be a bit better. Well, but it's even better than James Earl Jones.
Normally I'd say our patrons because I recognize the lead out, but this time. I'm going to buff the old ego, and I'm going to say it's having me back.
I heard you doing that, and I was going to disagree with you, and I can't. Erin, you are the greatest, and I've missed you, and I'm so glad you're back. And I hope
you thought I was gone for good. You thought it was just a matter of time, and I was going to quit.
I asked you as such when it first came on that you had stepped out, and it was the first show was fine. Then the second show, I'm like, okay, she's not doing another show. Are we Splitsville? Is mommy and daddy getting a divorce? And you assured me that you were not, and I take you at your word, though. Okay. At the same time, in the back of my head, She may not be leaving the show forever, but what if she never comes back?
I will be honest, I did toy with the idea of maybe I step down as hostess and just become a contributor.
Mm-hmm.
And I did think about that. I'd still be involved with the show, just with a reduced footprint. But honestly, it sounded like too much work. Because then, now I've got to have a segment every week, and I've got to record it, and I've got to time it. It's got to be good and right and proper, as opposed to just getting online with you and having fun for a couple hours.
Yeah.
This is easy.
I mean, it's the segments are actually quite a bit more difficult. You got to give credit to all of our wonderful contributors, except for Oddball, who still has 1,000,001 segments that he needs to put out.
Yeah, we haven't heard from him for a while now.
Yeah. I think his ice cream machine is broken, so we'll see if it warms back up.
I'm told that happens to a lot of men his age.
God, he's gonna listen to this. That's awesome.
That's exactly why I said it.
Oh, Ryan and I are getting him on Handgun Radio, so we will. So hopefully that will get a little spark in his step as well.
You going to talk about the Altor?
You know what? I guarantee we are. I'm not going to tip my hat and say what the subject matter is going to be, but let's just say that the Altor does not fit outside that subject matter. So, besides Erin Paulette, that is like the sun at dawn. You know what else is awesome, Erin?
Our patrons, Weer'd.
And they're alarmingly good looking. I don't know if you've noticed that about them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got
big packages too.
Big packages. We got a Christmas present for my daughter in the mail today. It's a bed tent, and so it is this gigantic box, and it weighs like practically nothing. And it's tucked down here in my office, and hopefully she doesn't see it.
What does this have to do with anything?
It's a big package.
Of course it is. Okay, good.
Holiday season is coming up, and there's lots of big packages, including the big packages of our lovely Patreon patrons. Thank you so much for listening to this show, and thank you to all of you other people listening to this show, because you know what? You guys are also important. Let's not belittle it. You don't have to pay for our love. We love you as well. You just are not as good looking, and the packages aren't as big. But if you would like to have a big package and be extremely good looking, you can become a Patreon patron by going to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Just so you know, it's not just the big package and the good lookingness. This is getting silly, Erin. You can get an early release of the podcast. We release the podcast on Friday to the patron subscribers. But also we have additional content. It's just about every week. Sometimes we miss it. There's ACP ACP blooper reels, which is all the mistakes, such as the one that I just did, that are cut out, and then extemporaneous talking and all that. It's like a whole bonus show. We also have film tracks where it is we essentially doing a commentary track on various films that we're sitting down and watching. And also we have the very special bonus show, which is called the ACP Mag Dump, which is just a raw and unfiltered off-topic show that we do every month.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts. It won't make you good looking or have a big package, but we'll love you for it. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
And you can get more from me on my blog, which is weirdworlds.com, and you can hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network, where hopefully Oddball will be on soon, and we had David on recently.
So you can find the latest press release. It's at blazingsword.org. It's also at lurkingrhythmically.blogspot.com. And also on that same site is a much longer blog post called Clarification, It's a Good Thing.
The links are in the show notes. And thanks to Nate Spencer for our lovely music.
Okay, folks, so I've struggled with this for quite a while, and Weer'd and I have made lots of dirty jokes, and I can't come up with anything. So I'm just going to go with, I'm Erin Paulette, and you're not. Good night, everyone.
Good night.